No path is darker than when your eyes are shut. No path is darker than when your eyes are shut. I wanted to repeat that quote. There is a darkness around us forming. And I know you will laugh about it or smile about it or think that it is some conspiracy mongering or whatever. But trust me, it is not. There are two great ideals in this world. One is freedom and one is control. We cannot believe in both. Now, when I say that we are in a time of struggle of good and evil, people mock about it because they think evil is some mythological power or being from the Old Testament, or that some Puritans are making up, or a weird and bizarre idea from the past. But my friends, let me tell you this. Darkness and evil are not a matter for fun. You know, I say this to some of very close friends whom I otherwise greatly respect. Darkness is no laughing matter. Darkness, my friends, is no laughing matter. Darkness is not something to be fun about, not something that is cool, something that is exciting. Darkness is dangerous. Darkness is evil. Darkness is ignorance. Darkness is stupidity. Darkness is fear and hate and corruption. Now maybe you do not like the term darkness, light, good, evil, but my friends, let's not argue about words, because that is what the enemy wants us. He wants us to bicker about details. He wants us to bicker about, oh, can you call this evil? Oh, can you call this Satan or the devil? And I say, heck, I don't care. These are the words that the heart of humans understand. Now, when I say in speeches or when I write in our text that is Satan which we confront, that is the devil that we confront, I don't care if you're a Christian, I don't care if you're an atheist, I don't care if you're a pagan, a witch, a Wicca, or anything. That is not the matter. It is an idea. It is a concept. It is a word. You can call the darkness in any other way. But one thing is clear. There is a darkness which is not productive. There is a darkness which is not just a change like in the great cosmic cycle of day and night. That is not the darkness I'm talking about here. There is day and there is night, and that is the balance and circle of things. There is winter and there is summer, and that is the circle and balance of things. But darkness, my friends, the darkness of evil which I'm talking here about, is not just some change. It is enslavement. It is the destruction of liberty. It is the destruction of freedom and everything that you probably hold dear, or that you reasonably should hold dear. You know, everyone who knows me knows that I'm very fond and interested in history. And I know that it is a little bit an unpopular topic today because people think that history is boring. But let me tell you this. If you study the history of humanity of the last, let's say, 500 years, you don't have to go too far into the distant past, that last 500 years, then you see that the human history is a constant struggle of freedom versus slavery, of oppression versus liberty. And these are absolutes. You either are enslaved and you are not free, or you are free. Sure, there can always be in between in details. You can always say you are not free in every aspect because we need a responsible society, and maybe a tyranny doesn't oppress you in every matter. There are many times in which these perspectives are correct, where you look for balance of things. But there are also times, and I am fundamentally and deeply convinced that we live in such a time where we cannot go the middle ground, where there is no neutrality. There are powers on the move which want to control and enslave humanity. And no, this is no joking matter. Maybe you do not believe me that there are Bilderbergers or Freemasons or great secret circles. If you do not share this belief, fine, that's not really important. Maybe it is a matter of ideology, a belief change that is currently happening. And you cannot possibly doubt one thing. Humanity is at these days, our time, at a crossroad. Whatever the crossroad exactly is, we cannot say, because usually you only know it in hindsight. When you look backwards, you know, oh, it was about that. If you look at the French Revolution in 1789, or at the American Independence War in 1776, I think, these were crossroads of humanity. It was the beginning of freedom, of democracy, of people deciding their own fate. At these events, the American Independence War and the French Revolution, humanity began to stop having kings and lords and aristocrats and autocrats watch over them and to control them. And if we look at the history of France after the French Revolution and look at the history of America, we can say, okay, there were always problems with liberty, but people overcame it, people grew, people learned. Maybe it took some time. We know after the French Revolution, there were people by the thousands beheaded, and there was a dark, the virtual tyranny after the French Revolution, and then there came Napoleon, and there came war, and there came fighting. But in the end, for Europe, the French Revolution meant the beginning of democracy. It meant the beginning of freedom, the beginning of true enlightenment. And my friends, however difficult and however problematic revolutions are and fighting for freedom is, and we cannot let that go. And the thing that I'm going backwards to is a news which I was discussing about with someone. It was about the so-called implanted chips. For you that don't know about this, I will sum this up very quickly. This is the idea that is made popular by certain circles that we would all be safer if we had chips implanted into us. Now you can let this idea sink. You have a chip implanted into your hand or your head or something because some government or some private company tells you, oh, you would be much safer if you have that chip implanted. You could easily pay with such a chip. You don't have money on to have or worry about the safety of a credit card that gets stolen or hacked. No, you have a convenient chip in your hand and you pay with it. Or your kids, and that was the news I was talking about with an online friend. Implant chips into your kids, because if they get lost or if they get kidnapped or something happens to, they have the chip in their hand or somewhere else, and you always know where your children are. Isn't that convenient? Is it? Well, of course it would be convenient. But the point where I really got mad and angry and pissed beyond speech that I had to finish the conversation because I felt I was getting so angry about, and a sentence was forming in my mind which really blew me off the chair, because I realized if my parents had implanted a chip, forced me to let myself a chip implanted in childhood, I would kill them. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, or you will be shocked, or say, Elika, how can you say such a thing? How can you even consider killing your parents? And I must say, I love my parents dear. And I go to great lengths to respect them, even against my own opinion, because in that I'm conservative, that I believe that it is the duty of children to a degree to respect their parents. but there are lines in the sand which we must draw. If any person would force me or want to force me to implant a chip into me, I would kill that person, because implanting a chip is stepping over a line in the sand, and that line in the sand is human beings should not be controlled by machines. Now, if you want to implant 1,000 chips for a plethora of things as an adult into yourself, I would still think you are stupid as shit. But do so. By all means, let the government implant chips into you. Let the government control your thoughts. I would say you are dangerous and you're stupid as shit, but it's your matter as an adult being out of your free will to do as you please. But forcing minors, forcing kids who can't speak up for themselves, who can't defend themselves, who can't say no because they're too small and they're at the whim of their parents, is the ultimate betrayal of your own children that I could possibly imagine. You don't force implantment chips into your children. I mean, yes, you can always say, oh, I would feel much safer, they wouldn't get lost. They wouldn't get raped, they wouldn't get kidnapped. But sorry, you can always argue for absolute control with such bullshit thinking. I mean, take the Borg drones from Star Trek. It's just an example from fiction to imagine how far this thinking could go. You might say, oh, Elika, don't come us with science fiction, but sometimes we need an outside perspective and maybe absurd perspective to see our reality better. The Borg drones they have no free will at all. They are just drones. They are connected by machines implanted into their brains. And if you think that is fiction and never possible, I really suggest you don't know what you're talking about. There's this wonderful geeky scientific magazine called Wired. www.wired.com. I really suggest you read it. It's a lot about geeky sci-fi stuff, but it's also about technology of the future. And if you Google for that, there is a breakthrough that just happened recently. They were able to connect rats or mice, I don't know, rats I think, with the brains of rats with machines. And both rats who were connected with the machine had some sort of basic telepathic connection. And that's the beginning of it. The idea is always that you are coerced to accept control because of your fears. Because the government comes to you, or a great agency comes to you and says, oh, we're just controlling you a little bit, but it's for your own good. They want to control your mail, your email, because they think, oh, maybe someone out there is a terrorist, so let's control all email, and if you've done nothing wrong, there's no reason to be afraid. And they want to control your money, and they want to control everything. They want to install, they've already installed cameras all over London. Every fucking corner of London is controlled by cameras. They are watching every step. And the argument is always, oh, if something happens, we could immediately react. And that's not untrue. But the point is, what kind of reality will we end up if we follow that thought? And it's the problem of all this is, these are all small steps. And we don't see the entire path this leads us to, because people only see the small next step, and this small next step from a certain point of view may make sense. You say, oh yes, there was people beaten up in some corner of London, and let's install a camera there. And oh, a child was kidnapped in this corner of London, and let's place cameras there. It's always something happened. A terrorist attack stroke, or someone was raped, or someone was beaten, or someone was murdered, and we always say, oh, let's have a little bit more control. Let's give the government a little bit more ability to see everything. It's for the best of all, is it? And I say, no, the fuck it is not. Sure, we must fight against crime, and we must adapt to the modern times. But what kind of reality of society will we have if we follow this path? And the big problem in all this is, if we take the first step of control on this pathway, it never stops. That is why I'm vividly and passionately against cameras in our cities. It's not because I am... If they would limit themselves to a few hotspots, if I could believe that, I would say, well, okay, a few dangerous hotspots, why not? But what I know is, they will not stop. It will set a precedent, it will set an example, and it will break a dam if you allow your governments to have that control, to have that surveillance on us. They will go step by step, the next and the next and the next. And it is the same with this. The implant chip is the ultimate evil. It is, I'm sorry, I feel so passionately angry about this, that humans are so directly controlled by machines, that machines are implanted into living beings. This is the ultimate step towards evil. Sure, you may say, oh, it's just for small kids. If they grow adult, they can remove it. No, it changed our pattern of thinking. With this small step, we accept this more and more until we accept it with everyone. And we accept it. First, it's just, oh, we just look into you. It's the government, they're the good guys, and you trust your government, and no, nobody is supposed to get such power. I mean, take the one ring from the Lord of the Ring. Gandalf wouldn't want the ring, and everyone who was wise and intelligent said that such ultimate great power corrupts everyone. There is that saying that the great power corrupts greatly, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Nobody is supposed to have such power. Nobody. Period. Paragraph. End of story. There is this wonderful saying from, I think it was Thomas Jefferson, who said, I'm paraphrasing it now, he just rather wants to have the issues of too much liberty than the problems of too little liberty. And those are golden words we have to place on every parliament, on every household. We have to memorize this sentence. Sure, liberty has issues. The issues is that if we give people freedom, they do wrong. They act bad. That is the price of freedom. And we deal with this as we have dealt in the last, 100 years or what, of modern democracy. It's not perfect. But as Winston Churchill said about democracy and freedom, it is the worst of all societies except the others. And that is the point of it. Sure, democracy and freedom mean we have to constantly fight about freedom. We have to constantly be vigilant and constantly be alert. It's a problematic reality. Freedom is difficult. Freedom isn't easy, and most of all, freedom isn't free. I mean, that we have freedom is not the result that the kings who ruled humanity for hundreds and thousands of years suddenly grew tired of ruling, suddenly grew weary of ruling, or suddenly felt benevolent and said, oh, let's give the power to people. No, we have freedom to govern ourselves because our ancestors took that power. It was bloody fights. Many people died. Thousands and millions died for freedom. Take our own history, and I'm speaking as a German here. Germany was under the tyranny of Hitler and the Nazis. We didn't remove the Nazis by praying or candle circles or protest marches. No, the Nazi tyranny was removed with the blood of soldiers. Americans, Britons, French, also Soviets and others. The Soviet Union had a tyranny of its own, so I will ignore this. But many Americans who could have said, oh, what's Hitler to us? We don't care. But many Americans sacrificed their fucking lives that we have freedom in this part of the world, and that not dictatorship and tyranny rules. Maybe you accept this as a truth, that tyranny does not just go away because we say, oh, tyranny is so evil, can we please not have it? No, tyranny goes and dictators go as far as they can, unless you say, here I'm standing with my frigging life, and you have to kill me to have your dictatorship. And I'm sorry if that sounds aggressive or evil or you worry that I'm getting insane or what. No, this is real. This is important. This reality is probably the most important reality that was ever laid before you. The question, do you stand for a society of freedom, or do you stand for a society of control, fear and slavery? And times like this, there is no in-between. There is no, you can't stand back and say, oh, I don't care about politics. If you don't care, those who do care will shape reality. Reality about politics, reality about society is shaped every day, every breathing moment. There are people in power and forces in power who shape reality, for one side or for the other. So if you don't care, I'm sorry, you're an idiot. Because those are your very basic realities of your life. If someone puts a chain around your hands, you would of course try to resist and say, oh, this is horrible, because it is evident and clear to see. But if someone would make chains around your hands and they are golden and they look cute, and someone would explain to you, oh, it's for your own safety, because if your hands wouldn't be chained, maybe you would accidentally hurt yourself. And that is what they are doing. They are taking away freedom. They are chaining and enslaving us little by little, always with a seemingly good reasons, always for your apparent best. And really, it fucking isn't for your best. It is not for your best. Giving control over any aspect of your life to someone else is never in your interest. Never. No decision, I think this is a sentence from Benjamin Franklin, no decisions made without your consent and your absence can ever be in your interest. In your interest is that you govern your own life. Now, I know a lot of people cannot imagine that there are conspiracy powers, or they think, oh, there is a conspiracy theory, or they think it's just absurd. Such things will never happen. If you really don't follow news, and I mean the real news, not what the TV news show you or the great media tell you, if you follow the real news about drones, about chip control, about mind control, and those things are real, guys. It's not some secret. You can read this up. You can read this up, that they are trying to hack the human brain. That they are trying to, first they survey you. They look where everyone is. With cell phones, to a great degree, they already can do that. The modern cell phone allows to track everyone who has a cell phone and whose cell phone is activated, that the government can track where you are at every given point. And if you follow this line of thinking, how much control through technology governments in the future can have over the people, and you follow this idea to the end, let me tell you this. The dictatorship and control level in the Third Reich, in the era of Hitler, is a kindergarten party compared to what will be possible in the future. I mean, let's just take two examples maybe which can show you this. Today we have real money. I mean, money on paper and coins. So I can go into a shop and buy, I don't know, coffee or something to eat or something to drink or anything. I can buy something in a shop and I hand out money, dollars or euro or whatever, and I get the product and nobody knows but me and the one who owns the shop. It's between us. Or I can create a chair and sell it to a friend for, I don't know, 20 euro, and nobody knows, it's just between us. That is freedom of trade. Now, what the governments want to do is to eliminate the real money so that we all only buy with credit cards or check cards, and that real money doesn't exist. That's the plan. So you may think, oh, what does it matter? I don't care if it's a check card or real money, it doesn't make a difference. And it makes all the difference, just you haven't really thought about it. If you have only money on a check card, which is only a virtual number, at any possible time, the government can cancel your money. It can eliminate your money, your credibility. You can be destroyed on an economic level with the push of one button. As long as there is real money, you can have money in your home. You can save money. You can put it in your sock, under your mattress, anything. And as long as this money is valid, you can buy and sell free without control. Any time you buy something with your credit card, it is listed at Barclays or at any bank you have your credit card, and anyone can look what you buy, and anyone can have a total insight over what you buy. Sure, you may say, so what? What do I care if the government or some agencies know what I buy? But I tell you that anyone who is, for example, a regular customer at Amazon and a regular customer paying with credit card, there is a detailed profile about all your interests. And that knowledge is power. That knowledge gives governments endless knowledge, insight, and power over you. They know your interests, they know your hobbies, they know possibly your sexual preference, and so on and so on. They know all about you in a world where you pay only with cards, and in a world where real money doesn't exist, because you can't just go in a shop and put dollars or euros on a table. No, you have a credit card, and with one push of a button the government says you are a terrorist, you're an evil person, you have no longer money. End of story. And your economy, the liberty is destroyed in an instant. Nobody can ever trade with you again because the government has blocked all your credit cards. End of story. That is the control that we must be afraid of. Or another point, which is more familiar to me, is buying software, especially video games, today online. 20 years ago, when you bought a computer game, a video game, you went into a shop, you placed your money on the table, and you got the box and carried the box home. You had that computer game, it worked forever. Anytime you wanted on any computer, it was yours to have entirely, completely, and nobody could control you about it. Today, more and more people buy software, video games as download version. And that download version is continually monitored and controlled. Now you may say, what do I care? It doesn't make a difference. I'm online all the time anyways. But the problem is, what happens if the company who constantly monitors you goes bankrupt? The result is you've paid a software, bought a video game you can't use anymore. Or if the technology advances, I can take out an old DOS game, and I can take out an old Windows game from, 20 years ago, and with an emulator I can make it work because it's mine, I bought it, I have the rights, I own it. But this download is you're always dependent on someone. If that company goes bankrupt, or if the company decides for whatever reasons you're no longer worthy, or they don't want you to use the software or the video game, they just cancel your account. They just take it out. And while you might say, oh, it's just a video game, what do I care? But it's an example how we are used and manipulated to accept exterior control. We are manipulated and coerced and brainwashed to accept that someone else is in control of every aspect and that is normal. And bullshit, that is not normal. Maybe it becomes the norm nowadays, or it becomes the norm someday, but it is wrong. If I buy something, if I have a financial transaction, that should be my private matter between me and the person from which I buy it. End of story. It's not the matter of the government to control it. It's not the matter of the government to oversee and overlook it. That is what a fascism is doing. That is what a Nazi regime is doing, controlling everything. We must not allow this to get into our minds. And the way through which governments get this into our mind is through fear. We are afraid of each other. We are made afraid of each other. We are always made afraid that everyone around us is a possible criminal and crook, and there must be a superior, all-powerful government controlling us for the better. This is paranoid. This is the gateway to fascism, to dictatorship. This is the death of liberty. We must not allow this. This is a vital and important part, because we are now entering a technology era and a technology level where government and agencies are more and more able to control us. Now, by nature, people desire liberty. People desire not to be observed. So what they are doing is they are making us afraid. Oh, look, something could happen to your children. You could catch an illness. You could be robbed, you could be raped, you could be harassed. Anything could happen to you. There's an evil world. Be afraid of everyone around you. Have as much surveillance with cameras, with implanted chips, with every sort of control. And we, the great big brother government, take care that everything works within order. And the answer must be no. And there can't be any compromise. There can't be any compromise. If you allow compromise, it's a dam broken. You open a gateway and they will take everything from you. They will not stop. They will not stop and say, oh no, we've taken enough liberties from you. Poor people, let them be alone now. No. They will take all, because that is the nature of the beast. In the Apocalypse, the writing of in the Revelation of John, there is this saying which I have to take as a quote. Just a second. Until Satan causes all sorry, I start again. Until Satan causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell, save that he had the mark and the name of the beast and the number of his name. So it's just an image, and you may not believe into the Bible. That's not important. But this powerful image that there is an overlord which controls every person, and every person cannot do any economic transaction without its consent and control. The mark on the forehead or the mark on the hand. Doesn't that ring a bell with the implanted chips? Now you may say, okay, they didn't know, it's just accident, it's just random, I don't believe the Bible, it's a book I have nothing to do with. It's not the matter. It's an image. It's a warning. It's a warning against control. It's a warning that we should never allow ourselves be marked, be controlled, be implanted, be branded. We are not cattle which needs to be branded, so if we want to run away, we know who is what. We are not sheep or cows who needs a branding so that the Overlord knows where we are. We are free human people with dignity. And we must fight for that dignity. Nobody must get that power. It is not for our own good, and it is not trivial, and it is not small, because it is the breaking of a dam, and if we are getting used to it, that is the sort of brainwashing, that is the sort of manipulation that they want to put us under, that we start to accept this control one small step at another. And there is that saying in Chinese wisdom, I think it's in the Tao Te Ching, not entirely sure. It's a widespread wisdom coming from ancient China, which is said, fight matters while they are small. Over the last years, when I try to make my point about politics or other points, regularly I hear people, when I'm very aggressive and trying to make a point very seriously about things, that a lot of people told me that, oh, Ilikal, this is such a small matter. Don't get so agitated about such a small and trivial matter. Get agitated when it's big. And I say, no, then it's too late. We must get agitated about it while they are small. We must fight and confront them with all our power while these matters are small, when they still can be stopped. Think about other ways that try to control us, the ACTA laws, or other laws which try to censor internet. It's always that they say, oh, it's for the best of the people. We just want to fight crime. No, you must confront this. This is not for a handful of criminals. And I can make a wonderful example which will maybe show this. Both in America and in Europe, there have been laws which are under the premise of so-called laws against terror. Now, the danger of terror, based on any fact and any real terrorist attack we had in Europe and in the United States, are minimal. If you take such newly installed groups which have been the result of the September 11 the bombing, like the Homeland Security, 99% of what the Homeland Security did was not fight against terror, but prepare camps against their own people. But the people don't notice, people don't care. They say, oh, Obama is such a nice guy, and as long as he's in power, let him know everything, and I don't care. And this is the ignorance. They are not nice guys, because nice guys wouldn't do such a thing. They wouldn't survey their own people. They wouldn't create thousands of possible camps to incarcerate their people. They wouldn't pass laws, like in the United States, a law has passed that any person just under the suspect of terrorism can be incarcerated indefinitely, without lawyer, without a judge, jury, anything. No, that's not made up. It's not a secret. You can read this up. This is reality already. And you may say, oh, nobody has yet been incarcerated in America. Oh, no, not yet. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, they didn't start immediately build concentration camps. That's a myth that people have, that from day one, the Jews in the Third Reich were incarcerated. That's bullshit. It was step by step. And they prepared people to get used to violence and oppression. In the same way, there were always a little bit more freedom that was cut. People were all step by step, with each passing month and each passing year, the people were reduced in liberty a bit more. And this was always because of some danger, always because of some threat. And sure, maybe there are, if you take the fear that we are induced by the dangerous Islam. Everyone who knows me knows I'm really no friend of Islam. But hell, most of those people just want to follow their religion. And we are always told that there are thousands and millions of super dangerous Islamic terrorists. And because of that, we must give away all our freedom. And I say no. We must not give in to fear. We must not let government induce us and reduce all our liberties with a fear that is absurdly trivial. I mean, how many people have died due to Muslim terror in Europe in the last, let's say, 10 years? I don't know, a few dozen? Nobody knows the exact numbers, but a few dozen. If it's 100 in Europe, it's much. There was this in Barcelona, a train wreck, I think, and I don't know, it's a few dozen. Do you know how many people in Germany alone died in car accidents? 4,000 in the last year. 4,000. And I don't know, many thousands died just by mistakes made by medics. The risk to die because of a mistreatment from a medic, or in normal traffic is 1,000 times higher. But that doesn't frighten us. I don't know why. That's much more frightening because it's much more dangerous. But these 20 people who in the last 10 years died of Muslim terrorists are enough to justify the destruction of all our liberties. And that is just absurd. If we were in a war, in a civil war in Gulf, where thousands are dying on the streets day by day, I would understand that such cuts were temporarily maybe being needed to restore order. But this is not the reality in which we live. And this is not the real enemy. The real enemy is not the Muslim who believes different. The real enemy is not a fundamental Christian. The real enemy is not an atheist or anyone who believes different or looks different, has a different skin color or a different system of face or system of politics. The enemy are those who induce fear into you. The enemy are those who tell you that you have to fear the other, that they need control so that your fears are calmed. The enemies are those who want those control, always telling you that, oh, be afraid of things that might happen, because there are so many dangerous criminals out there. And we need all those powers to surveil you and control you and oppress you. It's all for your good. That is evil. That is the fight we have ahead of us. That is happening every day around us. And it is not trivial, it is not harmless. It is the most important question of our generation. And we either stand up to freedom and the liberty we have fought for and our ancestors died for, or we lose it. I will cut this short because I'm realizing that I'm starting to repeat myself. I hope I've made this a clear point. Make this fight your own. It is important. And yes, we don't all agree about how we want to see the future. Some want more liberties, some a bit more responsibility, some want more social system, some want more libertarian system. This is not what we should divide about, because we are united, or we should be united, about one much greater reality: to fight the oppression that is coming. And this oppression will come through technology, through implanting technology into your body, so you never can get rid of it. And you never can be sure if you get rid of it, even if they tell you they took it out again. And it is a violation of liberty and nature. It is a violation of all possibility and prospect of liberty if machines are implanted to control you and to survey you. This is the breaking point, and there are technologies are now there and developed which control us, like drones, which maybe someday will fly over every street and have the ability to directly shoot people. This is not fantasy, this is already developed. It's not a secret. You can read about this, and this is not some conspiracy theorist. It's a fact that if you ask the United States governments, if you ask the European Union governments, they will say, oh yes, we're experimenting with that. Of course, it's always for your best, because if you're not able, you don't have to fear anything. But project this into the future. Do you want such a reality, where everyone has an implanted chip, where the thoughts of people are manipulated and controlled already? And that is, I will make this final side note, that is why I so vividly at these days oppose people of the green and the left movement. It is not that I do not like their goals. I greatly value the idea of the left that all people should have a decent life, that no one should be needy and poor. I value the green ideology that we should have a clean environment. The goals are great and good, but the methods of the Greens and the lefts are getting more and more paranoid and oppressive, creating a nanny state. Take the debate about vegetarians. I don't care if you're a vegetarian or if you eat meat. It's absolutely irrelevant to me. If you decide to eat only vegetable, fine for you. If you decide to eat burgers every day, fine for you. It's just your personal decision, as it should be. That is why I'm a libertarian, because I say such private matters should be private decisions. But what is on the move in the left and in the Greens is to oppress people, is to berate people, is to have a government that is like a father who educates you, who teaches you, who betters you. And I don't want my government to be my nanny. I don't want my government to be my parents, my daddy. I'm a grown-up person. I can decide for myself what I eat. And if I decide to eat meat or vegetable, that is my personal decision. This is one example why I'm these days feeling so angry so often about people from the green or the left movements. Not that I do not share many of their ideals. I don't want them to see enforced. I don't want people come from a authoritarian government who tells people what to do. This is not my sort of society. I want a free society where my private decisions are my own and the government is not educating me. The government is not berating me. The government is not my nanny, my daddy, my mommy. I don't want some overlords even for the best of me. I want my own mistakes. I want to make my own decisions, and if I fall on my face, it's my fault and nobody else's. I'm going to finish this now. I hope you are not too much offended or irritated. But I sincerely, profoundly, and deeply believe that these days are vital, decisive, important days for the entire human race, and the future of generations to come will be dominated by the decisions we humans make in these days. We will lay the path for one way or the other. And every single human being is responsible for what is coming. You can't run away from that responsibility. If you stay silent, if you stay neutral, you let them rule. So, I hope I've made my point very clear. If you're offended, I'm sorry, but I feel that the matter is too important to keep silent. Be well.